Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
It has been said that it is one of the most important things you can do to move your life forward. And it's so easy. And when I tell you what it is, you're going to say, yeah, I should be doing that, but I don't do it that often. And many of us don't because we can't believe how easy it is and the huge benefits that can come from it. I'm talking about gratitude. Expressing gratitude on an intentional, regular basis can be a life-changing situation, not overnight. I know you want to click a button and get your thing delivered from Amazon at 2 p.m. today. No, it's going to take a little time. But why is it so impactful? Why is it so important? We're going to talk with somebody today that practices that and preaches it, if you will. And not only is he a life coach, but he looks at that through the lens of holistic healing. And with that comes energy work, could be Reiki, could be crystals, all of that. He's back with us, and he is Tim Michaels on the program. Hi, Tim. How you doing?
I am wonderful. I'll ask everybody to kind of bear with me. It's humid once again in New England, so sinuses, the voice is a little off today, so bear with me. And also I want to thank all the people who took time after the last interview last week to stop and visit my website. So I really appreciate that. So I want to do two things before we really jump into this notion around gratitude. And my hope is by the time we're done, I've touched on enough science around gratitude. We've talked about why do we keep repeating the word practice and what can that really look like. But last week we were talking about my business integrating not just traditional coaching, but also the offering of Reiki massage and how that helps people with their energy. And we were talking about crystals. And we got kind of excited because you had your selenite crystal. We were talking about Kyle Gray and, all those good moments. But you had asked me a question around crystals that don't get along with each other, I think is the way you phrased it.
Sure.
So I didn't directly answer that question last week. I don't like to leave people hanging. So what I want to say to you is this. If you put two crystals in the palm of your hand, you'll either distinctly feel nothing or you will feel a desire to move them apart. That's not the same as conflict. We like to label it conflict. They have piezoelectricity. Think about putting magnets together and they push away from each other. That's kind of what's happening. If you pick up a crystal, no, I know other people will say other things. It can cause this problem, that problem. If you are setting an intent on a crystal that is not for your highest good, whether it's by itself or with another crystal, you're not going to get what you want. It's not a good thing to do. So crystals in and of themselves are grown from the earth. They're not designed to do anything other than grow. That makes sense?
It does. And it's also in line with what I've heard. When you go to buy a crystal, you should really physically do it. And you run your hand over, let's say you're in a shop, metaphysical shop, there's a tray of crystals. You run your hand over it until you, I feel something, just feeling something right there. That's the one I'm going to pick. I did that about a month ago.
Yeah.
And I just pick certain ones. I hear the names. I'm not there's a little description on them. And then that's why I asked that question, because now I have a bag of like 4 or 5. It actually just reminded me it's in the console of my car. And now there's concern in my mind that I've heard that sometimes they don't work well together. And I don't want to say causing harm because that's harsh, but just, there could be a conflict, and obviously you're not going to get the intended result from the
Right.
crystal.
So most people want to use crystals to either relax, relieve pain, bring about a balance or sense of ease. All right. So I love the way you put it. So just very briefly, you go into a crystal store, most of them have little baskets. They'll have like little square dishes of a certain kind, shungite all together. Just dump all of them into your basket and get them all laying flat. You can either touch them, hover your hand, or just while you're watching them, ask, who wants to work with me? It's energy. You should invite and ask the question, who wants to work with me? So when you get in the car today and you have that pouch that's sitting in somewhere in the car, just dump them into your receiving hand Make sure you think about this, dump them into your receiving hand, and then ask, who wants to work with me on the drive home? And that's the one just to kind of hold for the drive home. And in another segment, if I'm invited back, we can talk about the ease of cleaning them, charging them, and
Sure.
setting intentions. We don't always have to put them out in moonlight, in the sun, and all. It's nice if you want to, but you don't have to. The thing, whether it's with a meditation practice or with coaching, you've got to be authentic about your intention. Okay.
We know what an intention is when you say authentic. How do you describe that?
Sure. My intention is to be happy. But underneath that, I'm not really believing I'm going to move to action. I'm believing it's going to come to me. So if I say my intention is to be happy and I'm allowing an influence, I'm allowing an opportunity so I can go towards it in practice. Now I'm engaged. I'm putting something into it. Does that
It's
make sense?
it does. It's like the real deal, where, for example, in manifestation, we can say, I'd like to make more money. I'd like the perfect person in my life and all of that. But if you don't truly believe that they're going to show up and that they're out there, they're not coming your way. You have to be authentic in
Right.
in your belief.
So it sounds things like before you start your manifestation, I'm putting my shields down. I'm safe. I'm wrapped in positive, loving light. And I invite the person who's for my highest good and the highest good of all to show up in my life. That's very different. So it does kind of jump into this conversation around gratitude because language is really important. So every language, every word has a vibration. And whether you're setting an intent or a manifestation, you want to be careful. You don't want to be saying, I hope to be well one day. You're setting the intent that says, I am healthy and I am open to all ways to continue to be healthy. And that becomes your focus, right? Same thing with gratitude, right? You sometimes we use it in ways that are not healthy. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit at the end. You know, I'm so grateful you came today. Otherwise, who else would have done this? Well, okay, I'm not sure what you're saying to me. Can't tell if you're happy I'm here or you're telling me I'm lazy because all I did is one thing. What are we talking about here?
Mm.
So what I'd like to do is I tend to like to look into the universe and look for different experts. And in the world of gratitude, you have people like Dr. Robin Emmons, who's been studying gratitude for years, very clear science and information about it. You have people like Shonya Choquette, who will bring gratitude up as part of her meditation, getting in touch with your spirits. You have Native American Indian process. You have Don Miguel Ruiz. Very interesting. If you've ever read his
Mm.
Four Promises, okay. Very first one says, be attentive to the words you're using. Be attentive. Okay. So what that means is, what are the words you're using to describe yourself? Take that energy now, bring it out. And then kids, there's actually a TV channel on YouTube channel, Rocket Kids, and it is kids teaching kids manners, civility, and they did one on gratitude. And the number one thing the kids said about gratitude is stop being picky. I want us to think about that for a moment because as adults, we're often thinking we know what we want to come to us, and that's when we'll be grateful. And we miss all the other things that are happening. But the kids say, stop doing that. Don't be picky. It's right in front of you. So the one I like the best, and I'm going to challenge everybody to go and try and do this. I often use TED Talks as a way to gather experts and information. So I went on TED Talks and I Googled gratitude. And I think there's only 5 presentations that come up.
Wow.
Interesting, isn't it?
I would think there would be more.
I thought I was doing it wrong. I'm 62, Google, mystery to me. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at a definition by a Benedictine monk, David Steindl-Rast. And this man at 98 years old is still lecturing and talking about living a grateful life. So I want to make sure I get it right because the wording is really perfect for this. He defines and says, gratitude is the awareness that you have received something that is of a value to you that you did not earn. It is not the result of a transaction. Appreciation and thankfulness are more transactional in nature. So to be aware of it and to allow it would also mean that you are receiving it without deflecting or dismissing it. Scientists would tell you, in terms of your neuroplasticity and the way gratitude would impact you, the most beneficial gratitude is the ones you receive, not offer. So I just want to stop here for a minute and have people thinking, it's something that you have, that you value, but you didn't earn. So it is connected. So I don't want to make it so linear and so choppy and say thankfulness is one thing, appreciation is another. They lead into each other. So can I demonstrate it for you?
Please, because I'm thinking of things that I'm grateful for, and I keep a gratitude journal. Would love to get to that practice and your thoughts in a moment. But I'm thinking of the things that I've written recently, and I write 3 things a day, short, bing, 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 done. And I'm thinking of those things and determining whether they were earned. So there's a interesting line there. But yeah, give us an example.
So, for example, the company you work for reached out to me and said, would you be interested in doing interviews? They described it. I said yes. They gave me a contract. It was handled very nicely and efficiently. I said, thank you. That's a transaction, right? Now, the fact that they chose who was going to interview me, right? I ended up with you. You're very skilled. You have the history. I can say thank you for the technology and the technique you bring to it. But the moment of gratitude lies within the way you're allowing me to share information. So what I've noticed with some people who interview, they'll interject a lot of questions. They're challenged an awful lot, which challenging is fine. But it's your way of being that you're bringing into the interview that I didn't earn. I didn't earn. I'm going to pay the same amount of money for someone interviewing me, no matter who it is. It's not going to change. Within the experience, I'm aware that your style is working easily with me. My stress is coming down. I'm hoping the interview plays well for everybody else. That's the pieces I didn't earn. I'm prepared. I did my side. But how it actually comes out is really based on the energy in the moment. That I'm really grateful for.
And I'm grateful for your knowledge because I'm learning so much. And I don't try. I just ask questions that I think others would want the answers to, like the crystals and how we practice gratitude, and the science. I'm shocked that you brought to light there's only 5 TED Talks about gratitude. What?
Amazing.
It's like crazy. You
And
would
I'm
think.
telling you, this Benedictine monk, David Stendhal Rast, his is 14 minutes long. And he'll give you everything you need to know in 14 minutes. But so here's the things I want you and everybody to kind of be aware of. We overuse words so that they lose any impact on us. Oh, I'm so grateful this day is over. No, you should be thankful the day is over. You can say, I survived the day. I hope never to have another one. Or I guess I could stop you and say, so where within this day that feels like it must have been really hard for you, where within that did something occur that stopped you? And then you went back to awful. Was it somebody opened a door? Was it an awful meeting? And it could have been worse, but the person didn't demolish you in the meeting? Where was there an element of something you valued that occurred, even though it was wrapped in that awful day? Right? So the second piece about a gratitude practice, let's say, is practicing enough so that you can spot it and you can savor it, so that you can access it again anytime you need to. So that when you get in the car and you go, oh my God, this was an awful day. And I had that really interesting moment with Steve. So now I want to think about that interesting moment with Steve for a while and what that's going to do. What happens when I relive gratitude? I'm going to have more dopamine and serotonin being released by my brain. Because that moment I'm savoring and thinking about again is also going to help balance out my level of stress. I have, by practice, picked a moment and I'm looking at it that way.
Interesting, because I believe that's the authenticity that comes in
Mhm.
because you're feeling it. If you can
Yeah.
isolate that moment, you know what's trending now? The word glimmer. I call that a glimmer. Maybe that's connected to a glimmer of hope, but those little moments, that's a glimmer where, wow, that felt good. How did that feel? I'm grateful for that. And that yeah, raises your vibration for that moment.
So if you can focus on how did it make me feel is important, then what do I know? Well, that was nice. Well, so you always know there's certain movements humans make around certain things. You surprise them. We throw you a surprise party, and your belief is we all forgot. And you're grateful, you're thankful, right? But typically it'll be like, is this for me? And somehow you're pointing at yourself, or there's a hand over the heart, right? So one of the things I'd like to share is when a moment occurs, whether you do it in the moment or later on in the day, is to challenge yourself. What touched me today? You can use any language you want. What was my bright spot? What was my glimmer? What touched me today? Because it really is all saying the same thing. Something came to me that I didn't plan, that I valued. I didn't earn it, but I got it. That's the best part. I have it. And you can sit there and you can just think about it and use the palm of your hand and align it with your sternum. So if you align it with your sternum and just rest your hand about 2 inches from your wrist, because your heart is 2 inches over and 2 inches back. The backside of your hand, where your palm would be, is your heart. So now I just want you to breathe slowly for a couple of times with your head up and you're gazing down and you're just reliving that moment. And as you're doing that, focusing that the breath is going right into your heart. And all you're doing is, how did that make me feel? It just, I felt less stressed. My shoulders dropped. It was like a bright spot, somebody being nice to me. So what do you know? I like it when this happens. That's what I know. I like it when it happens.
Mm.
You sit with it for another minute and start the car and go home. But the next time you want to feel good, you're going to breathe into your heart and be calling up things that made you feel good.
Have you done it where, and I want to talk about practicing gratitude before we run out of time, but curious. Let's say you had that glimmer, whatever, that feeling today. 3 days from now, have you gone back to that feeling, mentally gone back and said, that felt good. I want to feel that again. And you
Mm,
thought about that moment, whatever that gratitude moment was. Have you been able to do that?
yes. So it's one of my theories and beliefs that even in the most traumatic experiences, um, for example, when I was 30, my 33-year-old sister had stage 4 breast cancer. She had a 4-month-old baby. I'm 30, I have no children. All right. Took care of them for 6 months. And I was sitting with my sister when she died. So that sounds heavy, right? But I can balance that by the fact that I was taking care of her daughter. Now, the gratitude in there is this thing that children do. I didn't know this. They'll just rebond to another person and then teach you unconditional love. So here is Katie at 7 months old. We're all living in a small apartment, and Katie just sends this message. And from that moment forward, um, I'm just being a good caregiver to this baby girl. I have no skills. I didn't go to a class. There's nobody around to help me. She taught me more about unconditional love, in her joy about being able to stand on the crib, and her joy about this. So 30 years later, Katie's 31 now. 30 years later, I'm aware my sister's gone. I'm aware of how that felt. But I also have this deep sense of gratitude about this experience taking care of this baby. And it wasn't just diaper her, dress her, keep her safe. There was an unexplainable bonding process that happened. I have no other words for it. I didn't do anything to make that happen. In a crazed world of running to appointments, running to chemo treatments, it just did. So 30 years later, I can keep that balanced. Now, I'm sure there are some professionals listening saying you really should deal with that trauma. And my answer, not debating theirs, is I did. I just keep calling up the gratitude of it. And because there's nothing I can do about the other pieces, nothing.
But you're aware. You're aware. And that's half of it. And I want to say here, I'm grateful that you shared that because I believe that's a refocus on all of that and what you learned from that baby.
Right.
The joy, the gratitude. It's my belief that when every child is born, they're all the same.
Mm-hmm.
Their parents speak different languages, but two babies who are healthy, they're all the same.
Right.
Every kid stands up and has that elation, like, look at me, I did it.
Mm.
Yeah. And it's magical. And
It
you
is.
saw the magic in that.
So the other one that I've been working on, it started during COVID. My maternal grandmother had an arranged marriage to get her out of Europe, pre-Nazi movement, all that kind of stuff. And it started during COVID, thinking if this 16-year-old girl could be in a wooden boat for weeks and be sent to a country not speaking English, and her husband, the stranger, didn't arrive for a year, if she can do it, I can do this. And then I started to really think about, I wonder what she really felt being free from worry about who was marching in, worry about this. So my focus these days are trying to be aware of my freedoms, the ones I didn't earn. So I start basic, from the physicalness. I mean, the freedom of movement. You don't really realize it till you fracture a leg or you get a pebble in your shoe or something silly. The absolute joy of walking. And you didn't earn it.
You
Just
didn't
like
earn
you
it.
said, you were born and either you had it or you're not. There's no earning there. We hope you take care of it. But freedom of choice, freedom of thought, freedom of reaction. When you really start thinking about it, it generates this kind of tingling feeling. Maybe I'm having a hard time finding a job, but my freedom allows me to do an awful lot of things. I'm not sure I'm explaining this correctly, but
Oh, I got it crystal clear. I really do.
yeah,
And especially when you said the tingling feeling, I've gotten that occasionally when I thought about that, what I'm grateful for or hopeful for something. Like
sure,
and even in those like most challenging moments, if you can
yeah,
bring yourself back to here, like,
right,
center, and that was the game changer for me when I realized why that's so important. It's kind of exciting. And
right.
because we are free, even though you may have challenges around you, you have freedom to make the next choice, the next moment, whatever you want to do.
So I include it when I'm coaching people or even after a Reiki session as a mindful activity. I encourage them to do it a couple of different ways, or to even write themselves a letter. During COVID, Yale University was offering a free course that is usually given to every freshman coming in. It's taught by Dr. Laura Santos. It is a science of well-being, science of happiness. And she had a chapter on gratitude. But to pass the chapter, you had to select somebody in your life, anybody you wanted. You had to write them a letter of gratitude, but then you had to schedule a time with them to read it out loud to them and hand them the letter. So when other scientific groups have done this, they've studied the way the brain lights up, what parts of the brain, in receiving authentic gratitude. And that leads to this other thing. If somebody walks up to you and says, Steve, I'm so grateful I ended up with you as the interviewer. You made it so easy. I just encourage you to say, thanks. Please do not say, folks, I'm just doing my job. That's what family does. No big deal. That's dismissing. And you may not understand why it was important to me, but practice what it feels like for that gratitude to get into your system.
I'm always somebody that wants to give it back. So I'm grateful that you have your knowledge. And thank you for saying that. And I appreciate that. I, and I could just end there, but I always say I don't try. I enjoy talking to
Oh,
someone like you.
see, and that's a great way. I say to nurses, when a patient says thank you, don't just say, I'm just doing my job. Say, I appreciate that. I love what I do.
Yes, that's where I'm going with that.
Yeah, it's an acceptance and it's a conveyance of an authentic truth. I may complain about all the other stuff around the business, but at the end of the day, I love what I do.
Sure. Yeah,
So I know we must be close to time.
we are.
I feel like I could talk to you all day. If
Same.
I could just say two things quickly. 14 days, every night, sit on the edge of your bed, feet on the floor, little notebook, take a deep breath, and just write down 3 things I'm grateful for. Don't nitpick them. Don't worry if they're doing them right. 3 things, and then lay down. Cognitive activity, feet are on the floor for grounding, and you've planted thoughts into your subconscious for your mind to work with. In 14 days, you'll notice you're sleeping better, waking up better, and you're happier.
We're out of time, but I have to
I'm
ask these
sorry.
questions. No, it's fantastic. Have to ask these questions. It's more impactful to do it before bed. Is that correct?
It has a benefit in terms of improving sleep and a better morning wake up.
Okay.
So I want to be careful about the word impactful.
Sure. And the intention, wholeheartedly, I will admit, I'm running around. I do it in the morning. Running around in the morning. It's like, open up the drawer, take out my journal with the pen. I write things down. But learning from you right now, I'm not setting the right intention. I'm doing it because I know I should be doing it. And my heart is in it because I think about what I'm grateful for. But I think I'm only halfway. Not about me. I'm just sharing. Maybe others
Right.
will feel the same. But doing it before bed, now I get it. The feet on the floor, you're grounded. You're at the end of the day, the hustle and bustle is not there. So now you're in the moment where you need to be.
So Mel Gibson would say, tiny habits, make tiny, tiny habits. So you started one. Coffee, journal, gratitude, out the door. So now just add the next step. It's just the next step. I'll try it at night.
Sure.
And then in a couple of weeks, I should say to you, now start using the camera on your phone. When you are grateful for a sunset, when you witness people being nice and that touches you, you're grateful the world is still a good place. Take a picture of it. It's nice to go back and review sometimes.
Absolutely. So the question is, am I grateful for this cup of coffee? Because now I'm thinking, did I earn it?
Well, you earned it because you paid for it. But if you actually enjoy the flavor and it makes you relax and it reminds you, you're grateful for the experience.
Yes. And I'm grateful to the
moment.
The barista, the people that grew the beans, all of that.
Great.
Tim, how do we find you?
Find me on my website, timcar.com. And you can also find me through the JCC Mandel Center in West Hartford, Connecticut.
Fabulous talking with you. I truly am grateful for what I learned today.
Awesome. Have a great afternoon, sir. Thank you so
too.
much.
We'll talk soon. And
Bye-bye.
we're coming right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.